Get excited because this week's Feature Friday is the men's Dockside Polo. And in this video, I'm going to teach you step by step how to get a beautiful and perfect placket. Welcome to the Love Notion Sewing channel. For those that don't know me, my name is Megan and I'm from Sew and Tell Australia. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be showing you how to make a really beautiful and clean Dockside placket for your Dockside or Driftwood. And I made this one earlier as a test for my husband. And I made a beautiful placket here. So we're going to be going step by step through how to do that. This one I actually did the binding, but for the one that we're going to be doing today I won't be, just for ease so that we can show how to do it. But like I said, it works on both the Dockside, and I made this cute little matching one for my son, which is the Driftwood. So as you can see, I got pretty good with my pattern matching here, so I was very happy about that. So I'm going to be making him a really nice royal blue one. So he's a very lucky boy. He's got his test one that I made in the black, and I'm going to be making him a royal blue one as well. I do want to note a couple of tools that will help make this process easier for you. The first is making sure you have a really good pair of sharp scissors. This is going to become really important when you're snipping into that placket piece. So making sure you have a really sharp pair of scissors or snips is a very important piece of getting good results with this pattern. The other thing I use are clips. So we've got some clips and also pins. I tend to use pins when I'm kind of like trying to find precise points of the garment, and then I'll swap over to clips for the other part. Because we're using a serger for a lot of this, I want to make sure that I'm not serging over any pins. So I use a mix of clips and pins. And the last two things is you need a really good tailor's chalk. So it's really important to make sure you've marked all your pieces on your pattern pieces. So any kind of marks, there is a specific measurement or placement mark where you've got to mark the left side as you view it on the front piece. So make sure you mark that. It's very important. So it's good to have some good tailor's chalk, and you're going to need a ruler or a quilter's ruler, just something with inches on it so you can be very precise with your measurements. Another very important part of making sure that you get a really nice, clean looking, professional looking placket. So without further ado, let's get started with making our Dockside Polo with placket. I've got my front piece here and I have marked the left side of as you view it. I've got the little mark that we made in our pattern when we cut all our pieces out, and I've got the placket piece here which I have put interfacing on. So I've just done a light interfacing, and I've also ironed or pressed down the sides. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark our line 1 inch from the edge of the placket. So if we get our ruler here, and I use a pen because we're not going to see this, it is all hidden. So we go 1 inch, and then we need to do it 1/2 inch up from the bottom, which is here, and then I'm just going to draw a line down here to my mark here. We are now going to line this up on our piece, our front piece. So I like to get some pins, and I've lined up my mark with my mark there. And then we just want to kind of make sure that it's roughly or as straight as we can down our shirt piece. So that is looking pretty good to me. I'm going to bring it over to our domestic machine, and what we want to do from about 1/8 of an inch each side, maybe a little bit more, we're going to start, we're going to draw down. I might even draw it to show you. So I'll move this pin for now. But we're going to sew down this V here. We might do 1 stitch across, and then we're going to sew up this other side to the top. So we're going to come down, do 1 stitch across, and then come back up. So let's do that now. I'm over here at my domestic machine. I've actually got my walking foot on because I find that is very helpful when working with stretch fabrics. I've got my stitch length set to 3. Again, just another little tip when working with stretch fabrics. And I'm going to start I'm going to do a tiny back stitch, and then I ended up I redrew the line to make sure that it was sort of 1/8 of an inch each side. And then all we're doing is following our line down. As we go all the way to the end. And then as we get closer, you can choose to hand crank if you want. So you're getting that nice crisp V, because that is part of getting a nice placket, is really making sure that you are quite precise in your sewing. So I'm just going to do 1 stitch across. So I hand cranked that. And then I'm a little bit off, but that's okay. We're going to sort of come back a bit and follow the line again. And come back up. And then as I get to the top again, I'm going to do a little back stitch. We've sewn this bit, so we can clip these threads. I sometimes find it is easier to clip the threads as you go, so you don't get kind of lost in all the different threads. So it looks like this from the back, or from the front, and this is what it looks like at the back. Now what we're going to do, we're actually going to take this over to the iron, and we're going to fold this over like this, and I'm going to give it a really, really good press. So we want to kind of really make sure that's pressed nice and firm. So I will take that to my iron, and then I'll come back and we'll do the next step. I've given this a good press, and I'm now going to clip down the middle. You could have done this in the step before, but I'm choosing to do it now. So I want to cut down this middle line, and I'm taking really close note of my stitches because I do not want to cut through my stitches, and I want to cut down to but not through this bottom stitch. So we're going to do that now. And again, this is where being precise really matters. So the closer you can get down to that stitch and not through, the cleaner and nicer your placket will be. As you can see, we've cut right down to but not through those stitches. So being very precise and careful with that will make a big difference. So we have already cut down and obviously press that, and now what we're going to do is we're actually going to flip it to the back side. So this is our front side where the placket will sit there, and this is where you can kind of start to, this is just my iron, put some water on it when I steamed it. This is where we can start to check that the placket is going to work and look good, and do we need to do any kind of changes to it. So it looks like it's looking pretty good. It might be a little bit caught, so we might need to sort of trim into that corner a little bit. But in general, it's looking quite good. So I'm going to give this a really good press, again with my iron, and then we can move on to the next bit. So I've given this a really good press. Again, this is just my iron with some water on it. And as you can see, it is all looking pretty good. So I'm very happy with that. This is from the front. Obviously, that is, oh, I didn't iron that very well, but that is the placket side under there. And then on the back side, which I will re-press that, but that is what it looks like from the back. So I just made very careful cuts into my underside to make sure that I really got those corners nice and crisp. and I am very happy with how it's all looking. So the next thing we need to do is attach the front and back. So I'm going to get my back piece, and where the shoulder seams are, I'm going to attach the back and front together, and then we can go on with finishing off our placket. I've sewn my pieces at the shoulders and I have my collar here. So now what we're going to do, this is for the collared version. If you are doing the polo version, it's slightly different where you put your pieces at the front, but you can double check the pattern for that. But with the shirt right sides up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my collar, and I have pre-found the center back of my shirt and the center back of my collar. So that is the first thing I'm going to do, is line up those two places. I like to use pins to find it, and then I will clip, because if you go over a pin with your serger, you will not be very happy with yourself. So now what we're going to do, I get my collar, just trim this little bit off so we don't get confused. And I'm going to put my collar about sort of 1/2 inch from the viewer's left side. So about there, and I'm going to clip it. So we've got our placket piece, if we folded it out, would be like that. And we want to have our end of our collar sort of, 1/2 inch from the placket fold. So it should sort of sit about there. And then the other side, from the viewer's right side, will be 1/2 inch from the placket seam here. So about there. Clip it. And then what we're going to do is just gently stretch the collar between each part. You can put extra clips or pins in if you like, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to baste it. So I'm not going to use my serger just yet, but I'm going to baste it. And basting is when you use a long stitch on your domestic machine. So we're going to baste this collar on and then come back and do the next step. I've basted this on now, so like I said, it is a long straight stitch, and basting basically just means that you can pull it out quickly. It's just kind of to tack it on there to make sure that we've done it right. So the next step that we need to do is you need to get your placket and fold it. I might just quickly trim these little bits because I know how confusing it can be when we've got threads going everywhere. So we're going to get our placket and fold it over so it's sandwiched along that line. And I'm going to pop a clip here so that I've got it nice. Now, if you were doing the binded version, you would make sure you have your binding in here as well, but we are just doing this plain version. And then on the other side, we're doing the same. So we're folding it back on itself. We're making sure that we've got our little end pieces folded over as well. I'm going to clip that there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take this to our serger and we're going to serge all the way around. I have also got, this is a time if you have any labels that you're going to use. So I like to put a label in with mine. It's just a simple show and tell label that I got. And this is just to make sure that anyone who gets my garments understands the size. So I use a permanent marker, and also just to know where the back is, because my family are notorious for, if there's no label on it, they don't know which the back is. So I'm going to take us to our serger and we can attach our collar now. Got my serger ready to go. Pop my fabric under here. And now I'm going to sew all the way around. I am going to make sure that my serger needles are covering my tacked needles or my basted needles, because otherwise I will have differences. Same as if you are using a domestic to sew it. I would just make sure that you are sort of going over those basted stitches. If not, I would just pull them out at the end so you don't have them there. but we just go around making sure we're not grabbing anything extra. And as we get closer to our label, make sure that is pointing down. I couldn't tell you how many times I have sewn something and then noticed after that the label was like halfway up and I've chopped it in half. Or very frustrating. So as we get close to the end, again, it's just moving your fabric out of the way and sort of making sure you get the best finish. All right, we have serged these pieces. Now what we're going to do is turn in our ends, our plackets. And it's looking so pretty. So you can push those ends out. But as you see, when we line them up, they line up like that. So nice. So you can now top stitch these side pieces down if you want to. I choose not to because it will stay in place with the buttons anyway. So I don't worry about that. And if you did have the binded version, you would then top stitch that down as well. But I'm pretty happy with that as it is. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to flip it over. So we're working on the back side. I like to try and line up these top pieces here, and I will generally put a pin in. And we're just working with this little piece here. So we can check from the front, make sure, yeah, it's all lined up pretty good. And we're going to get this piece at the bottom, and what we want to do is sew across the bottom there with our normal domestic machine. So we're not sewing through any other part but this bottom bit. So I will take us to our domestic machine now because we're going to sew along the bottom there, and then we're going to create the little box stitching at the bottom here to make sure that it's really secure. I've got my piece here, got a stitch length of 3. Just going to go back and forth over the back or the bottom here, like that. You can serge that end off if you want, which I think I will do. Just neatens it up a little bit, and then we can do the rectangle on the front. For our rectangle, I have laid out our placket piece, and I'm starting on the edge, which I can feel. I can feel that there, and I know that the bottom is here. And what I'm going to do is just do a rectangle. So I'm going to start here, tiny back stitch, going to go all the way to the edge, and you can do hand cranks at the end if you want to get more precise. I like to have my needle in the down position, flip my presser foot up and pivot my fabric, come back down, just making sure that it is all lined up and beautiful. And then I'm going to come up a little bit, probably to about there. Again, I'll put my needle in the down, flip my fabric, or pivot. Then I'm going to come across here till I'm lined up, down, pivot, and then I'm going to come down to here, right to that corner. I will hand crank at the end, and then I'm going to sew on the diagonal, like so. And then I generally just choose the side I think I'm going to do an extra stitch on. Come down to the other corner and then go diagonal. And then I'll either do a locking stitch or I'll do a little backward stitch and finish that off. I've done my little box here, taken my pin out, and as you can see, this placket is really taking shape. So the last thing you need to do is you can either put buttons in here or you can do snaps or metal snaps. So I'm going to finish mine off with plastic snaps, but I'm going to continue making the rest of the garment, so I'll finish that off, and then when it's all done I'll come back and show you it finished. But that is how you get a really nice looking placket. Remember, you've got to be really precise with your sewing and clipping, and you'll get a really pretty placket. And just like that, we're all done. Look, it's so pretty. So I finished mine off with snaps. It lines up beautifully at the top, like that. I've done my short sleeves. We've got a beautiful finished split hem. And I can't wait for my husband to wear this one. He's a very lucky boy. He's got two, as I mentioned at the start. I hope you found this really helpful. If you'd like to learn more, you can always make sure you like and subscribe to the Love Notions channel, and you can come and find me at Sew and Tell Australia as well. I'll make sure that I link all of the relevant links down below. But thank you for watching along. If you've got any questions, pop them in the comments and either Love Notions or myself will answer them. Thanks very much and enjoy your sewing.